Hello everyone, welcome to EuroBONUS podcast. I'm the host Donatas URBONUS. I'm joined by Rytis Vyšniauskas, my colleague, my co-host, and we're just saying hi for the last time here from Berlin.
Unfortunately, yes, and as you can see, I have accustomed to the Berlin culture, and now I'm a huge Alba Berlin supporter.
Yeah, and definitely I see you wearing this during the upcoming season, because you always impress us with your outfits and retro jersey you have.
I have a lot of merch, and I continue this tradition to buy the local club merchandise. So in Berlin, obviously it's Alba, even though it took a lot of effort to get to the fan shop.
You can imagine.
It was not as easy as like in Barcelona to go and buy a Barcelona Football Club jersey, but I got what I wanted. I also have a t-shirt that says Free Pete, because Alba Berlin, they're the German champions 3 times in a row. So kudos to any Alba Berlin fans watching us.
Yeah, there are a lot of Alba Berlin fans. That's why we're hearing Johannes Timon and MVP chant here in the arena. So this is our last podcast from Berlin, but after the finals, we'll do our podcast in Vilnius in our studio. Probably Augustas Šuliauskas also gonna be there, and there we're gonna summarize the EuroBasket and of course the final game between Spain and France. In this podcast, we will discuss more about the semifinals, particularly one semifinal game, and it will be kind of combined Q&A session as well. But just before we start, one more time, we are really thankful for all the support, all the attention, everything what we got during the EuroBasket competition, because there was a lot of feedback in YouTube, even in the arena, meeting a lot of different people. So it was great, for such an important basketball competition. Once again, just to bring this basketball community together to discuss, to share takes, to share opinions. So thanks a lot. And if you like what we're doing, just please subscribe our channel, because we're going to continue our podcast during the EuroLeague, FIBA Champions League season. There's a lot of more good content here, including video highlights, some other shows there on BasketNews.com YouTube channel. So please subscribe us and also press like button, because it helps our channel to grow. So let's start with the first semifinal game. Poland, France. Why are you smiling?
Because this had no business being a semifinal of a EuroBasket. And once again, such a shame that Slovenia didn't show up in a quarterfinal to do what they had to do, and there was no competition in this game. Actually, after the first quarter, you could easily say that France will play for gold, because these were 2 different level teams, and a very important thing is that France had excellent matchups against Ponitka and Slaughter. LBC, we know how crazy he is on defense, and also Tarpei against Ponitka. Tarpei is a nightmare matchup for anybody. So
they're just good defensive team in general.
They are good. And Rudy Gobert is there as a rim protector. You could see him blocking some shots, like sending the ball from Berlin to Warsaw. So honestly, there was no competition, and it's kind of sad, because on the semifinal stage, you expect the game to be not necessarily close. Sometimes you have a blowout, but you expect to see something different.
And we were used to these close tie games, thrillers, dramas, surprises.
So let's talk about the history. I mean, this is the biggest margin in a EuroBasket semifinal ever since 1967, when Soviet Union beat Poland by 40.
Yeah, also it was the biggest victory for France in EuroBasket since 1959. I mean, 41-point margin was the record breaking. And it's also, this is the largest margin of a win for a team in a game in the knockout stages in the EuroBasket since 1987, when Yugoslavia also beat Poland by 47 points. So
Poland is kind of
they have
unlucky
a bad history
in these records.
Although it kind of, we cannot rule out what they did in the quarterfinal game against Slovenia.
Of course, I mean, for them, whether they finish 4th or they get the bronze medal, it has been an amazing tournament and an amazing journey. But for Team France, one very important moment, I think, is they saved a lot of energy. They had the earlier tip-off, and they didn't need to overplay Yabusele, Gobert, Fournier, Ertel, and all these key players. They will be well rested and prepared for the final. And another good thing is that role players that don't necessarily fit in the rotation, but they still play some sporadic minutes, like Elio Kobo and Amat Mbaye. they felt good. They hit some shots, and maybe, who knows, they will play some minutes in the final, and the confidence will be there. So these are very important moments for Vincent Collet. They didn't.
You can get
didn't
better
get tired.
before your final game, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Just giving some confidence, boosting the confidence of these players who will be important if they want to win against this super competitive team like Spain. And I loved the headline in French newspaper L'Equipe. I think that even before the game against Poland, they called it the Boulevard of Dreams. Getting through Turkey and Italy by a miracle, and then getting Poland on the semifinal game instead of Slovenia. So it's really a boulevard of dreams, and let's see if they're gonna fulfill their dreams in the final game against Spain.
And you know what? Like, I'm not predicting the final. I'm just saying that Spain against France in a EuroBasket final seems to make a lot of sense in the 21st century, right? Because these are two most dominant national teams in Europe. Also, Serbia is there close to them. If you look at the Olympic medals, EuroBasket medals, and FIBA World Cup. But those are very different teams. These are not the Gasol brothers against Tony Parker and Boris Diaw. This is a different story, but one way or another, France against Spain, Scariolo against Collet. It's like inevitable,
Yeah, their semifinal though was really great. Spain, Germany. I mean, a lot of comebacks. One team was up by 10, the other got the lead, went on the run. A lot of roller coasters during the game. A lot of interesting individual performances, some tactical things. What kind of struck to your mind the most?
Well, first of all, what I love about this Spanish team is that they never panic. If you look at all three games, the round of 16, the quarterfinal, and the semifinal, in all of these games, they were down by double digits at some point in the game. Like against Finland, it was in the first half, against Lithuania, third quarter,
15,
against Germany, -10 in third quarter also. But they just never panic. They always seem so calm. They know that as long as we go into the last minutes with a more or less close result, we have a good shot at this, because Lorenzo Brown is amazing playing the last minutes. He has clutchness in his veins. So I love that they never panicked. They stayed in the game the whole time, even though Germans were making some crazy runs with their transition freeze and Dennis Schroder driving to the basket.
I love the way you said Schroder.
I'm trying to improve my German pronunciation. So Spain, the good thing that they did, they found X factors, like they usually do.
They always
right?
did in this tournament, yeah.
I wasn't even surprised at this moment, because I saw it in other games as well. But Usman Garuba, we know his defensive presence, we know how good he is rebounding the ball, but in this game, all of a sudden he started to show us his inner Marc Gasol by dishing those assists, especially to Juancho.
And all these celebrations,
Oh my God, but this is amazing skill, no-look passes with 2 seconds on the clock.
Good reads, very good reads, and these were important plays in the middle of the fourth quarter.
And the other guy is obviously Alberto Diaz. I mean, his on-ball defense is great, excellent. He can pressure any opponent. But the other thing is that he also gave them points. Because Coach Scariolo is probably thinking, okay, Dario Brisella is maybe the more talented player on offense, but I need Alberto Diaz next to Lorenzo Brown because of defense. And all of a sudden, Alberto Diaz also hits a three-pointer, hits an end one. He ended the game with 10 points.
Yeah, and these were in the second half points.
Second half points, important moments in the game.
16 minutes, and his plus-minus is plus 25.
Wow.
The second best in Spain was Rodolfo Fernandez, plus 11. That's it.
Nice.
That's the story. I mean, it's incredible.
And of course, then in the end of the game, you depend on Lorenzo Brown. He had a great game. All night he was doing what he does best. Playing the pick and roll, having the defender on his back, going deep into the painted area, and just finishing with his right hand. Also hit some three-pointers. He was feeling very good since the first quarter. So you could see that it was a 30-point type of game for Lorenzo. And the bigs, as you know, Willy Hernan Gomez, one of the best centers in this tournament. But
impressive.
What's good about him, he doesn't have a problem sitting out the most of fourth quarter, because Scariolo needs Garuba for obvious reasons, And Willi is just sitting on the bench cheering for his team. He knows that, okay, I might be needed in some possessions when the coach starts these defense-offense substitutions, which happened. Willi hit clutch free throws, and Usman Garuba had his moments on defense. So it's just great teamwork, and this team has amazing spirit. Like they brought an American into the team, but they brought the right American. He fits perfectly into this team, as they call La Familia. So, and again, I cannot say too many bad words about Germany. They played their hearts out. They were fighting out there, but just in the fourth quarter, they lacked some consistency and better decisions.
One thing I didn't like, I remember Dennis Schroder. He scored a 2-pointer and he increased the lead up by 8. It was like 69-61. Then they also increased the lead 71-61, and it was like 1 minute to play in the third quarter. And from that moment, Germany really started struggling offensively. And what I didn't like, okay, they started the fourth quarter with like 3 or 4 field goals with like 7 minutes to play. They were in a good situation. And then what happened? They made only 1 of 10 from the field. And the problem I saw was that Dennis Schroder, who was super hot, he had 26 or 28 points after 3 quarters.
Yeah.
He just stopped at first getting the ball, and next thing, just playing with the ball. Okay, it took a lot to do with Spanish defensive decisions, using box and one defense. Alberto Diaz was usually on his ankles all the time, try to isolate him from the game. And there were a lot of missed shots by Maudolo, who was kind of off not only today but in the last game. Also, there was Timon Bab taking tough shots. It's not his shots. Thijs was also, trying to force some situations. Okay, Wagner made some shots. It's the guy you can kind of rely on, but he was missing these shots. I was kind of, when you have such a hot leader, and basically every time he has ball in his hands, he will either create shot for himself, more or less good shot, and especially when he's punishing you if you try to go under with him. If he's not scoring, he will find the pass. He will find the right man to deliver the ball. I was just missing more creativity from German's coaching staff, how to involve him in the game, than Alberto Diaz or other guards doing everything just to isolate him from the game. And I think it was crucial because Germany just started to struggle offensively. Then Spain took the lead, and Spain did what they do in these last minute games. They're just killing everybody with right roles, with right decisions. Maybe I missed a little bit more switching from German defense when Lorenzo Brown got hot. I mean, I think that it was a very crucial moment, and it feels me sad because I love what Spain did. I was really supporting them from basketball fan standpoint from the knockout stage when I finally saw them live. But Germany was the team, probably they played the most beautiful basketball. They had this charismatic leader like Dennis Schroder. They had this young star, Franz Wagner, some other individual performances starting from Maudolo to Obst. Daniel Thijs, I mean, his dunk, one-handed dunk. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was probably impossible ball, but he catched it with one hand and just hammered it. I mean, it was a really nice team to watch, and the level they showed, everything they did, they really deserved to win this EuroBasket and to make this fairy tale, winning the trophy in the home crown. Dirk Nowitzki watching your team with this jersey retired. But I think that moment was probably crucial in that game. I mean, Dennis Schroder just being isolated from the game.
But I cannot agree with you about that they deserve to win. If they deserve, they had to win the semifinals. It's as simple as that. They can still finish their tournament on a high note, take the bronze medal, and nobody could say that it was a bad European championship for Germany.
No, of course, I'm not saying that Spain didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
I think it was just a perfect setup, and the way they played, the quality they brought on the court, how beautiful they were. They really played team basketball. It was just a perfect combination for a championship
team. They didn't play particularly good defense. That's the problem. And in the fourth quarter, I have to agree with you. They couldn't adjust to Scariolo's defensive systems. They couldn't find solutions. And I remember the possession when Schroder was on the court, Wagner was on the court, Obst was on the court, and their possession ends with Daniel Theis taking a mid-range jumper. This is what Spain wants you to do. They don't want to see your best players touching the ball and making decisions. They want Daniel Theis taking mid-range jump shots. So in the fourth quarter, Spain, they outplayed Germany tactically and mentally, in my opinion, because Lorenzo Brown is so cool. He doesn't care about the score. He doesn't care about how much time is there on the clock. He just lives for the moment, and you can always trust him. I mean, he's proving to be an elite point guard in the last couple of years. Even though he's 32, like 2 or 3 years ago, we still had question marks about him as a EuroLeague point guard.
There's a reason why Fenerbahce let him go.
But there are no questions right now. If you're a GM or you're a coach, you want Lorenzo Brown on your team. And Scariolo obviously brings the best out of him. So, again...
just coaching staff in general, they brought the best from all of the players. They're just fitting their role just perfectly. Because when I just think about this team, about the lineups they have, basically they have one of the best point guards in the EuroBasket. Then they have this amazing lineup of centers with Willy Hernangomez being one of the best, let's say, scoring bigs in this tournament. And then from bench, you bring one of the best defensive big men in the tournament, Usman Garuba. They have veteran Rudy Fernandez, other players filling their role. Of course, they're playing above any expectations you could have. But when you take the most important pieces for the successful teams, they all have it, and especially it starts from the coaching staff. And this is one of the most fun to watch coaching staffs in the tournament, because you probably also noticed that when Spain sets the offense, there's Sergio Scariolo on the sidelines.
Yes.
When they start to play defense, there is Luis Gil.
I think it's Gil,
probably. Sorry.
In my opinion.
Yeah. Gil.
Any Spanish people, if you're watching, just give us the correct pronunciation.
And from what I heard from the research I tried to do, this coaching staff is super strong. They have like 5 assistant coaches. They're all very good in scouting, in video stuff. A lot of them also worked for the youth teams or with previous generation of Spanish basketball stars. So even in a simple situation, like they all have good connection with Ricky Rubio, for example. They call Ricky Rubio. They talk about Lauri Markkanen, for example. When you have these geniuses like Scariolo or Luis Gil, for example, they set the defensive adjustments against Lauri Markkanen. I mean, their scouting department was really great, and that's what we see on the court. But at the same time, it's okay. Preparation is one, but execution is another thing. So I was just amazed how quality they have such a huge variety of a lot of defensive systems, and I was just amazed how quality they execute all these different tactics in such a short time. And at some point, having Scariolo at Windows helped him to get to know better all these role players, which we see here on the national team. But I mean, it's very, very interesting team to watch.
So my last 2 points are, first of all, this team is unique because even in the knockout stage, Scariolo always uses 11 or even 12 players, which is kind of unique because most of the teams and coaches, when it's the knockout stage, they go for 8-man rotation or 9-man rotation. But here you see that even Sebastian Saiz gets his minutes. And Joel Parra in the quarterfinal, for example, got a lot of minutes. And the other thing, this once again proves how strong is the Spanish ACB. Because we're talking about role players on the roster, on the national team roster, but these are good players from clubs like...
Although they're not like main players, they're rotational.
No, I mean, they're good players from clubs like Malaga, Unicaja, or Valencia, or any other team you take from ACB league. It just shows the quality of the league. There's a reason why ACB is called the strongest national league in Europe. And you can trust these players. All of a sudden, everybody knows who Dario Brisele is. Everybody knows who Xavi Lopez Arostegui is, Jaime Pradilla, and all the other guys. So these are my 2 points about this team and how they went to the final. They really deserve this final. I mean, if they win the gold medal, it should be like biggest achievement for Scariolo with the national team. I know he has the gold medal from the World Cup. I know he has all these medals with the golden generation. But for the first time, they were the true underdogs. Nobody saw them in the medal stage. Not about. I'm not talking about finals.
If
about
they're
the medals.
like top 8 team in the tournament. When we
in our power rankings, they didn't make it to the top 8.
I had them.
Or you had them
8
in the 8th
and
spot.
I was saying like never underestimate the heart of the champions.
So you were right, but even you didn't expect to see them in the final.
Really.
So
not really.
If they win it, I think for Scariolo, it should be the biggest achievement with the national team. So people are talking about how Spain is now suffering a change of an era. Like the veterans are stepping down, young players are stepping up. They have an American on the team. But let's pay attention to one thing. Every Spanish team, men's and women's, on youth level, and now we see with the national team, they made it to the finals of the competitions they played. They didn't win all of the gold medals possible, but they were always in the finals. This is amazing. This just shows that the future is bright, and the present is also bright, as we see.
You know, it's a point worth a discussion because it's not the first time when they have this successful young generation. But even when I was talking with some people from Spanish basketball community, they say that there's still a problem with this bridge between youth basketball to pro basketball, and especially when we're talking about, significant players like Rudy Fernandez, Gasol brothers, or even Garuba. So let's wait and see, because we also have this history in Lithuania being successful at youth level, but then struggling somewhere, helping these guys to find a path on the top. So
we'll see how many of them. We'll see how many of them become successful in men's basketball. But for example, Juan Nunez is a huge prospect. He was close to making the roster this summer. Actually, he got cut eventually, but he's 17 years old. Yeah, so let's wait and see what happens about the young players. But in general, Spanish basketball is in the right direction, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, the other question I had, if, for example, when I think about this team, and when you think about the MVP of the EuroBasket, and for example, if Spain wins the EuroBasket, it feels like the real MVP of this team is Coach Scariolo, no? But watching how Lorenzo Brown is performing in a knockout stage when it matters, actually, it's just impressive. He's in these 3 knockout stage games, tough games, important games. He averaged 22.3 points, 8.3 assists, 1.3 steals, shooting by 53%, and I think he's legit candidate to win this MVP
Spain
trophy.
Wins it. Spain
it would be the first time, and of course it will bring a lot of discussions. It will be the first time since 1973 when the American-born player became the MVP of EuroBasket competition. And what's interesting, that guy was Wayne Donald Brabender Cole, who also played for Spain. He was American-born Spanish player and coach later. I'm not really sure about his Spanish ties, although he acquired the citizenship when he was like 23. Probably Spanish basketball people know this story better, but it's just interesting coincidence.
Another coincidence is that 15 years ago in the EuroBasket final, Spain got killed by an American player. I'm talking about the legendary John Robert Holden hitting the game winner, and 15 years from that moment, now Spain is being led by an American point guard, Lorenzo Brown. So, of course, he's the clear MVP candidate if Spain wins the gold.
So I think we can go with the questions.
Yeah,
we didn't.
Sure.
Sorry. Thanks. First of all, thanks for all the questions we received, but we also had to split some questions. Some of these questions were kind of similar, so we just we took it to one question, or some of them were about the EuroLeague, and we thought that in the upcoming weeks, in 2 or 3 weeks before the EuroLeague season, we will do the
EuroLeague is our bread and butter.
Yeah.
So during the season, when October starts, that's our main topic, EuroLeague and every club. So we will have a preview for the EuroLeague season, surely. Right now, let's just stay with the EuroBasket stuff.
Exactly. So let's start with Red Hippog 7. I'd like to know if you guys have spotted any new trends coming out of this Euro, and if these can or will affect European clubs in the upcoming EuroLeague. For instance, do you see 3-point shots being an even more major factor? I think I don't remember, it was probably the highest scoring EuroBasket we've ever had, probably. And there's a huge difference between previous competitions. I just found one good tweet, give me a second, which compared the offensive ratings between the competitions. And okay, I cannot find it right now, but the point was that there were in this tournament, there were 7 teams who had a better offensive rating, more than 600 points per possession, per 100 possessions. And for example, to compare it to the previous competitions, before we had 1, 2, or 3 teams. So Jonas also did an article that was exceptionally offensive oriented EuroBasket. So for me, it was kind of trend. I don't see that affecting European clubs, because it's 2 different worlds in my eyes. But I was just happy that we could enjoy this national teams basketball with a lot of high scoring games.
Yeah, but of course the impact of the NBA players and some of the greatest players in the world is obvious in the scoring department. But the more realistic trend that probably could affect EuroLeague clubs, the way they're building teams, what players are they hiring, is, in my eyes, I don't have any statistics, it's just from the eye test, that coaches really value players that are capable of putting pressure on the ball handler. They're not necessarily very skilled. Mm-hmm. They're not necessarily scorers, but they just have this one mission. So we saw Albisi, we saw Diaz, we saw Tarpei, we saw Butkevičius even for Lithuania. In most of the teams, in the better teams, like also Larenzakis, I mean, he scored a lot of points, but that's a different story. Basically, he's there for his energy on defense. So all of these teams have at least one guy who is capable of stepping up and pressuring his opponent like crazy, defending on the thin line of foul. And I don't see that every EuroLeague team has a player like that, but probably they should consider it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's what makes LBC valuable, because no one in EuroLeague would hire Andre LBC as their point guard, as the creator, the playmaker, the ball handler. He's not a good shooter. He's not a very good passer. He's not very good driving to the rim. But his quality on defense is huge.
I'm just thinking, these successful teams, they had players like that. For example, you have Thomas Volkov.
All of them have at least one.
Yeah, Paris Lee in Monaco, for example, shined as a kind of, that kind of player. I mean, yeah, we have some, but I know, yeah.
And some of these players, they're not super expensive on the market. So even clubs in EuroLeague like Žalgiris or Alba that are not so rich and don't have that much money, they can find players like that on the market that would bring this particular quality. Because what many coaches, especially American coaches, always say, just be a superstar in your role. If you're a spot-up shooter, just be in the right spacing and you will get your shots. If you're good at defense, just bring your heart to the court and play solid defense for 18 or 20 minutes. This is the trend I saw. But talking about scoring, yeah, obviously it's a very high scoring tournament, but also because we have extra quality.
Yeah. John Dale, CP. Hello, Donatas and Rytis. There has been a lot of surprises in this year EuroBasket, but I'm curious, are there any players that have completely surpassed your expectations?
Surpassed my expectations? There are a few, at least.
Yeah, it was a bit difficult to find these players, especially the ones we didn't mention before.
I mean, for some of them, you didn't even have any expectations, but all of a sudden there's Mateusz Ponitka with the only triple-double in the tournament.
Although at some point it's not that surprising. We all knew that.
We know how important he is for Poland, right?
Yeah. Well, for example, I can say that I was surprised by Dennis Schroder leadership, because I was questioning his leadership skills and the the player who sets the tone for the team both offensively and defensively. And I think that he just shined in this role, because before even the NBA, I mean, his personality, the way how he handles his emotions was one of the biggest red flags for him. Of course, combining with him being not, let's say, very effective high usage player. But in this tournament, I think the main difference is that he was the main guy, and in the NBA, he cannot be the main guy of a winning NBA team. But here, he was the main guy. Other players, there were a lot of younger players. Some of these players were role players. They accepted their roles, and it just made a very nice fit. And also, Schroder also embraced this role. From what I heard, he was really good personality-wise. He was helping a lot coaches. He was helping a lot from his leadership vibes to his players. So it was just a very good fit. And on the court, I mean, he punished his opponents who tried to under him. He was one of the highest scoring players, averaged almost 22 points. And in my eyes, especially if Germany made the finals, he was my MVP of the EuroBasket. So he's a very high level player. So at some, he kind of, it's hard to surprise, but it was more about the off the floor skills that translated on the court.
There are some players that simply played up to their expectations, like Lauri Markkanen, for example. We expected him to be the
He was amazing, but we just saw that.
I mean, to be the highest scorer in the EuroBasket. But I have two names, players that really exceeded my expectations. So both are from the finalists. First of all, Usman Garuba. He's an unpolished prospect, and we sort of don't really know where his ceiling is, whether he will be an NBA player or not. We don't know that. But he plays his role perfectly for Spain right now. And of course, in Tokyo Olympics, it was kind of difficult for him to show something, because not only the Gasol brothers were there, Willy Arna Gomez was also there.
He was also a rookie, and so it's also always tough experience.
Yeah, but right now, you can see that this is the guy you want to trust. And he brings a lot of good stuff on the court. So Usman Garuba is one name. And
I will just add, I can see random NBA fan who opens EuroBasket stats, for example, and he wants to see, the average of Spanish players. And he sees like Garuba averaging 5 points, 5.4 rebounds in 17 minutes. And I see him thinking, what an awful EuroBasket experience.
The beauty is not in the numbers.
Exactly.
The beauty
you can remember how important Garuba was with his offensive rebounding against Lithuania. He made some clutch tip-ins that helped Spain to win. Of course, he was always delivering with defensive stops, but in this game against Germany, 7 assists, great reads in crucial moments. I didn't see Spain in the group stage, but from what I see here in the knockout stage, Garuba is just crucial player for their success.
He's just a perfect backup center for this team, and he's someone you can rely on in the fourth quarter, which is very important. And the other name I have on the list would be Thomas Hurtel.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are a couple of reasons. It's not like you're surprised seeing Hurtel playing good basketball, but in the last few years, a lot of stuff happened to him. He was left in the airport by Barcelona. He was cut from Real Madrid's roster because of some disciplinary issues, and he didn't even or barely participated in the ACB playoffs. And in the EuroLeague Final Four, I think he didn't even play a single minute. Yeah. So you had some doubts about him, and you see a France team that lacks a ball handler. They don't have ball handlers. So Hurtel is taking that role, stepping up, because there's no De Colo. Evan Fournier is having a lot of ups and downs. And Hurtel is one of the most consistent point guards in the tournament. And he also made some clutch shots. He helped the team win and go through all these adversities in round of 16 and the quarterfinal. His pick and roll with Rudy Gobert is crucial, because they have the biggest turnover number in the championship. It's like 17.5 per game.
Mm-hmm.
This is because they don't have good ball movement and they don't have good ball handlers. So in the fourth quarter, when you must limit your turnovers, every possession is the same. Ertel playing pick and roll with Gobert.
He's irreplaceable on that team.
Yes, and this is surprising because in the last few years, it looked like his career is going down. But this EuroBasket proves that the quality is still there, that Tomar Ertel is still as good as he ever was.
What's interesting about Schroder, that he's the guy who barely made the EuroBasket because he has injuries just before the tournament started. The same is with Tomar Ertel, because he signed with Zenit St. Petersburg, and when then French Federation told that if you're going to play in Russia, you're not going to play for the national team. And the deal wasn't officialized, but from what I heard, it's expected that it's gonna be officialized
Like after the EuroBasket,
yeah.
he's still signing with Zenit,
which is interesting. And then his future at the national team will be raised on the air, because next year we have the World Cup. 2 years from now we have Olympics in Paris. So we'll see how French Basketball Federation, evaluates this situation. But yeah, I mean, this guy had a lot of off the court problems and issues throughout the past years, and I didn't expect that he can be such an important piece.
I didn't expect him
team.
to be so consistent. I didn't expect him to be so clutch, and he's
48
one of the main reasons why France is in the final.
Halit Kochak, after this disaster referee performances, NBA superstars still planning to attend future organizations?
I think, like Luka Doncic said it loud and clear, that he wants to play for Slovenia. If they qualify for the World Cup, if they qualify for the next EuroBasket, and if he's healthy, he's going to play. Giannis looks like he's very dedicated to the national team with his brothers. Nikola Jokic, I don't think there's a problem with him. He played for Serbia in the Olympics and the World Cup, right now in the EuroBasket. Of course, the referees, they're really annoying, we must admit. The NBA players and even the EuroLeague players just cannot cope with some of these decisions, and it's hard. But I don't think that the quality of referees will determine whether these players join the national team or not. It's about some other things, like, are they healthy? How tough was their NBA season? How important is the upcoming EuroBasket World Cup or the Olympics? So
and
these
also,
are the main
I think it's
points.
also related how federation works. For example, you can have examples of Bosnian Basketball Federation, of just the situation in the country in general, when you're playing 2 friendly games, when you're living 4 guys in 1 hotel room, a lot of stuff to go through. And there is also big coach factor. And for example, I've heard that it was very important. I think that 5 Milwaukee guys followed Giannis to Greek national team. And I think that they had 2 strength and conditioning coaches. One guy was more working with Itudis, with planning and stuff. And from what I heard, they were kind of happy because they saw that, neither Itudis or anybody else was killing Giannis with, a huge workload, intensive practices, and they just wanted to take care if everything goes well and if they're not pushing too much with Giannis Antetokounmpo. So, and this team had a great chemistry, one of the best chemistries they had in many years, just like some other teams. So I think that these are the main factors when we're talking about the NBA superstars. If Pešić stays, and from what we see by Serbian Basketball Federation or from his quotes, it is expected that he's going to stay. I have some doubts, about Nikola Jokic. If he was exhausted after this national team experience, if Pešić, as he told, that he's not going to change his habits and his approach in basketball, and he still continues with these.
But we haven't heard a word from Jokic himself. He never said anything. He never complained about anything.
Nobody heard a word from Jokic because he spoke to media only on the first day of the training camp for 2 minutes. Okay. So, but that's the information I'm hearing. There were also reports in Serbian media, I think. These are decisive factors for these players' participation. So
the refs, they're not that important because when you go to a competition, all of the players will have the same refereeing and all of the coaches will have these same issues. We will see the number of technical fouls, and it is what it is. We have to live with it as long as the EuroLeague referees are not here.
Yeah, there's Alastair Wood or Marushaz a question. Is it possible, and what would it take for FIBA to forbid nationalized players like Toby, Lorenzo, or Schroder from competing in EuroBasket? Would you like that to happen? I personally would, as I feel national team competition becomes almost like club competition with limited free agency for Americans.
Well, we've had this discussion before.
Just before the EuroBasket,
I
right?
think now it's a little bit too late to reverse the rules. It is what it is. Some teams really rely on their naturalized American players. In most cases, these are point guards, which shows that Europe is not as successful at growing point guards.
Which requires skill, athleticism, a lot of things goes in that combination.
Yeah, you have to be very strong mentally. You have to be able to lead the team, to score when needed, to distribute when needed. Only Slovenia, they're going for bigs because they need a shooting center playing next to Luka Doncic. In the point guard position, they're more than sorted. So this is the tendency. Well, I think it increases the quality of the competition in terms of teams like Poland, Bosnia and Herzegovina adding quality. But when Spain has an American player, that's what all the fuss is about. People are not happy about that. They're saying that this is unfair. France will introduce Joel Embiid maybe in the next competition. He will also count as a naturalized player. I think that right now, if you make a decision and start canceling all these players
or introducing new rules,
it wouldn't be fair. But at the same time, if you start increasing the quota, like you can have 2 or 3, that could bring a different discussion. Right now, I don't really have a problem with one naturalized player on the roster, even though some of the rules, they should be looked at, like Ignas Brazdeikis, in my opinion, shouldn't count as a naturalized player. But again, these are smaller details. I'm the one that does not have a big problem with these Americans performing in the EuroBasket.
Yeah, I have a problem because I just think that it goes against national team basketball idea, because in my eyes it should mirror the current situation in particular basketball country. If you have a problem with the point guard, that means that you're doing something bad in your youth system, and that's where you should invest. By bringing naturalized players, you kind of go on a shortcut, and in a long term it doesn't help your basketball. At the same point, I understand that there is a rule, and this rule kind of, maybe the pure idea of this rule was just to get like players like Ignas Brazdeikis with clear Lithuanian roots to suit up for national team of Lithuania, for example. But at the same time, this rule also allows to go, under this rule and to use it for the good of the national team. So we see players like Lorenzo Brown, Mike Toby, Jalen Smith, who has no ties with the national team. And since that rule exists, I just think that we should stop complaining, and because it won't change anything.
Just live with it. If
you want to change something, make questions to your basketball federation. What did you do in FIBA board, for example, if you raised the question, if you requested any change or something, because we won't, or players complaining about these naturalized players, they won't change anything. It has to be some united movement, structured movement with clear points, clear ideas, and suggestions how we should change it. And now when you get scored by Brown with 30 points and then you start complaining about it, I mean...
Most of the basketball federations are using the rule to their benefit. Just Serbia, Lithuania are the ones that are against it.
And also
Greece,
there are different laws. In Lithuania, you cannot even give
a passport. So
that's
not only about the basketball federation, it's about the government, how they give the passports. Like, passport is generally a contract with the country. If you have a Lithuanian passport, it means like you are committed to Lithuania, to the laws and everything. So again, it depends on the government. But from what I know, that these players, they don't necessarily get paid to play for the national team. Just the European passport itself,
they're just getting advantages,
helps them in their career.
Yeah, but again, I mean, this topic actually requires way longer discussion, because when you just think deeper, I mean, we're living at times where, for example, Giannis and his brothers, they struggled to get a Greek citizenship until they were like 18, 19 or 20, although they they were born in Greece.
They have Greek names.
They spoke Greek. I mean, they went through Greek youth systems. And here we have some countries who are just throwing passes to basically anybody. So it just shows how different the world is and how hard it is to control that situation, because the main thing is that FIBA is not going to change or to make this rule stricter. There's clear one spot on the roster, on the 12-man roster, and from what they say officially, they're not going to change it. But there are a lot of interesting points about
what I hate about this discussion is, I mean, whether you like it or not, whether you're for or against, it doesn't change anything. So my approach is just
you have to
live with it and enjoy basketball. That's it.
Yeah, I agree. Davil, and as much as I like Doncic or Giannis, I'm happy to see that the team is still more worthy than a single player. I feel that in the NBA, this isn't always true, as a game is more star players focused than the team focused.
It's not just about that.
Yeah, it's just a take, so we can elaborate on it.
Yes, I mean, in my opinion, it's not just about that. The NBA season is a marathon. The EuroBasket is a sprint. Like, if Slovenia is playing best of 7 series against Poland, it's 4-1 or 4-0, a sweep. It's clear. But it's a one-game knockout competition. Injuries impact you. You're tired. It's hard for you. Your body is tired. Like, especially we saw it on Luka. So this changes everything.
Mm-hmm.
In the NBA, it's a marathon. You finish your regular season, you qualify for the playoffs, you're playing the best of 7 series. In one game, anything can happen, but in a series, usually the better team wins. So it's not just about the team versus the star. Like, you replay the Greece-Germany game. I doubt that the Germans would hit 17 threes again. In a series, you would take Greece.
Yeah.
It's just, you can say,
specific.
like, the magic of the EuroBasket. Like in football, you have the magic of the cup, where in the league season, rich clubs and better teams always dominate. But in the cup, anything can happen. Yeah. So that's the same in the EuroBasket.
Yeah, not the best. The best team not necessarily wins it, because it goes about timing when you peak, about just, finding this chemistry in like 3 weeks of the preparation stage, then a lot of injuries
physical condition.
Yeah, just one good day. So, it's very different. And actually it comes to another question by Hugo Stiglitz. He asks, can the roles and efficiency of the players in the EuroBasket be extrapolated later in the club? Ponitka with same responsibility in a club can be so decisive. And that's the thing, that FIBA competition is a whole different world from the club competition. And sometimes it's strange to see Adam Hanga being the main scorer, basically on the team Hungary, being a point guard, playmaker on that team. And I mean, we have to understand that it's a long season. Also, we have a lot of American players, which says that there's more athletic basketball, more intensive basketball, and on a long stretch of the season, a lot of things can happen. And
look,
the level is just higher on the club competition.
And it's very simple. Again, the EuroBasket is a very small sample size. If I sign Ponitka to my EuroLeague team as my key player, my main playmaker, my main shooter, he does everything for Poland, right? If his shot selection in EuroLeague would be the same as it is in the EuroBasket, he would end the EuroLeague season with like 18% three-point shooting accuracy. And if I hire Marcos Pisu as my main point guard and my main scoring option, I will finish dead last in the EuroLeague, because I will be exposed so many times. In EuroLeague, you're building a team based on your idea, how you want to see it play. Like, that's why you have these coaches like Trinchieri, Messina, Charas. They have a clear idea what they want to see on a basketball court, and they are hiring players according to that. In the EuroBasket, the coach has to adjust to the players, because if Italy doesn't have a center, well, the coach has to play without a center. If like Poland don't have bigger talent than Ponitka, well, they have to depend on Ponitka. But in EuroLeague, I don't see these players having huge roles like they do in the national teams.
Although there was also a question about Ponitka. I mean, it's clear that he's the EuroLeague player.
Oh
and
yeah,
he
he's
could be
EuroLeague material, but just
a really good
Charlie
role,
Pascal,
rotation player.
he
Yeah.
showed us how Ponitka can function in a good EuroLeague team.
Yeah, there's no question. Atos Miriantus. Hi guys, more love from Cyprus. Great podcast. My question to you is, do you think that the elimination of the three teams with the NBA superstars actually confirms how more technical and tough European basketball is becoming, on contrast with how more athletic NBA is? In my opinion, this was a coaches tournament. See Scariolo, for instance, or how our coaches eliminated Giannis with the wall.
Well, I agree to some extent, especially about Scariolo, but the Giannis wall, I mean, Giannis did good in the quarterfinal.
It was not about the offense.
They didn't lose because Giannis was struggling.
It was about the defense.
And then the other part of the question, I could go back to what I already said about the format of the competition.
Yeah. Kachi Billions. Hello guys, enjoy listening to you all. Love from Cyprus. A lot of listeners from Cyprus. I have one question. With the elimination of the top players in the NBA and their respective countries, do you think that the coaches were so much dependent on their status as superstars in the NBA and didn't utilize the rest of the team and game planning? It seems as if when their superstars were having a bad game, the team folds. For example, Luka had a bad game against Poland and the rest of his teammates just folded like clean sheets. And where do you see the future of the respective countries, especially Greece, when it comes to EuroBasketball? Thank you.
I see them being one of the powerhouses in European basketball.
You're talking about Greece.
I'm talking about Greece and other countries, Slovenia, Serbia. And if you have a superstar player, how can you not be dependent on him? I mean, Luka Doncic makes everyone better around him. So I don't think the reason why these teams lost was that they were too dependent on their star players. No.
Yeah, because there were some questions, for example, maybe Slukas or other players who didn't get as many touches as they get on the club basketball. Maybe they were too cold to hit some shots or something. I don't really think that it affects them because, as you said, I mean, all these other guys next to these superstars, they just become better. And it's all about lineups and who fits who the best. And Slovenia had this amazing formula. For example, last year, one clear superstar and a lot of Eurocup players, let's say.
I mean, in the NBA, if you watch any playoff series, the role players determine the outcome of the series so often, because when you're playing next to a superstar like Giannis or Luka, they will always gather the defense and they will always give you the ball if you're open for a spot-up shot. And then it comes down to whether you hit those shots or not. If you watch Greece, the way they performed, Papapetru or Papanikolaou cannot complain about the number of shots they had. They had plenty of wide open looks. They
get more open looks when in the club season.
Yes, Dorsey also. I mean, they just couldn't make those shots consistently. And I'm not blaming anybody for those losses, but I think playing next to a superstar like Giannis or Luka or Jokic makes it easier for you, not harder.
Unless, I don't know, you have Giannis, Sabonis, and Valanciunas on the court. Yeah, maybe then it's hard.
Well, then issues with spacing.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Nikola Perisic, how to get better referees? Simple question. And simple answer. Just bring these EuroLeague referees. I'm not saying that, they would just eliminate all the complaints about the refereeing because you can hear a lot of stuff in the EuroLeague as well. But I think it's kind of clear. For example, we have this Lithuanian referee ranking, and our best ranked Lithuanian, he's 6th on that ranking, and he's working here in the EuroBasket. I think it tells a lot that not all the other from top 5 work in the EuroLeague, but it explains something.
If you're working in EuroLeague for the whole season, you adjust to faster pace, to better players on the court, more physical contact. And if you're working in the FIBA Champions League the whole season, the quality of basketball is lower. So as a ref, your job is also different. I mean, you apply the same rules, but the better the players, the faster the pace, more contact, more tactics, more everything. So when you don't have the elite European refs, you suffer. It's simple. And I don't want to like single out any names, but I saw many referees in this tournament that they looked lost.
Yeah.
They couldn't cope with what's happening on the court.
The best picture was during France and Poland game, during the fast break when Yabusele was about to dunk the ball in transition.
They stopped the
He
fast
was
break
like
for
one or
technical.
2 steps away from that dunk, and they just stopped the fast break. They got technical for Polish national team head coach, which didn't make any sense. You can, you can give this technical after the play.
Yabusele is going for
It was like
for a dunk.
second or 2
So
away from
Poland benefited from this
exactly.
because they avoided 2 points and it was only 1 free throw.
Okay, in the
instead.
end they got a 3-pointer, but
Yeah,
still,
yeah.
I mean, they went in a better situation.
Yeah.
So it tells a lot about, the speed of the game. The speed of the game is different. The athleticism of the game at the highest level is different. And these referees, they just cannot, follow the same tempo of the game, the same level of the game. And that's where's the main difference between the highest quality referees and, let's say, a little bit lower quality referees.
I agree.
Norbert Strautens, where do you think full roster of Latvia would rank in this EuroBasket?
They could be a quarterfinal team, and since we see Poland in the semis, who knows?
Or even Finland, for example.
Finland,
For sure.
they're just as good as Finland and probably even better because around Porzingis they have great
Bertens.
players.
Yeah.
So
Schmitz, a lot of great players.
I mean, it depends on a lot of factors, which group you're playing
Exactly.
in, what bracket do you get in the knockout. But Latvia could easily go for a medal if everyone's focused. I mean, in the past, I remember Latvian teams also being talented, but they were not just focused enough on basketball.
And dealing with a lot of off-the-court issues all the time. Azimus, this is a personal question that I had to include. Why you even don't try to hide your hatred against Turkish basketball? What makes your hatred so strong and obvious? I think it's also related to my tweet where I was complaining about the 3 points that Furkan Korkmaz received in that ridiculous situation, and it cost at least one very important point for France in the last minute of the tie game. But the whole hatred from Turkish fans actually towards us is ridiculous because if you remember, just in our recent podcast, we really supported. First of all, we put them 5th in our rankings before the EuroBasket. That tells a lot.
Which looks funny right now.
We look hilarious right now with these predictions or just putting them so high. Then there was this scuffle between Turkey and Georgia, and we were kind of more in Turkish side, I would say. Of course, now we hear all the different opinions. There's this disciplinary look from FIBA on the situation, and let's wait for some evidence. But I mean, I think that Turkish basketball received more than enough support from our side. And
I mean,
during
the season, we talk a lot about Fenerbahce, about Anadolu Efes, and we always praise them when they do the right things.
People didn't understand the impersonation of Ergin Ataman, and maybe they thought it is disrespectful, but that's what we did for fun during the whole season, and it doesn't have any disrespectful messages behind that.
I don't hate any country or any country's basketball culture. I accept everything, and I mean, I know that people are different around the world. It's normal.
But it's so funny about these fans. When I posted something about not kind of supporting France, I just wanted fair fight on the court. Of course, Turkish fans attacked me. Then I posted that France, they are lucky bastards because they went through miracles, especially the Fontecchio one. And I was kind of, attacked by some French fans saying why you cannot deal with France winning games. So every time you tweet something, for some reason fans think that you're against somebody. And when we are from Lithuania, when we are journalists and we are just enjoying basketball in general, it's so strange to hear that kind of feedback because we are supporters of good, nice basketball, basically. That's what we prioritize. So it's just, we don't have any preferences, just to make clear. And there's a legit question about Turkish basketball by Ahmet Bilay Kuru. What went wrong with Turkish national team? What would be your starting 5 and the main roles for Turkish national team? If Furkan and Cedi play in the EuroLeague, can they have a dominant role in the Final Four team? Greetings from Istanbul.
Well, in my opinion, they didn't have a clear system of how they want to play. If I was the coach of the team, of course it sounds funny when some random guy says if I was the coach, but I wouldn't play with two centers. I wouldn't play with two bigs like Şengün and Shanli in the same lineup. I would use Cedi Osman maybe more as a four. Maybe you can say he's an undersized four, but a lot of teams play with undersized stretch four type of players, and they do okay. So I would rotate Shanli and Şengün as my two centers, not them together on the floor. I know that the bench is not very deep, so probably have to stick to a 7 or 8 man rotation. First of all, I need Shane Larkin to be in a good shape. Of course, he's my main point guard, but he would be a scoring guard in my team. And then Korkmaz and Cedi Osman, they're great players. Of course, they would thrive in EuroLeague right now. Korkmaz is a sharpshooter. Osman brings a lot of good qualities. He can be tough and physical on defense as well. So my idea is just that I stick to Şengün and Shanli as my centers. I don't play them together because then I have two slow centers on the court, and it makes it so much easier for the other team to attack.
They had many defensive issues. So you need some role players who would fill these roles defensively or just supporting our guys with our qualities. I mean, they weren't far away from reaching higher goals. I mean, they deserved the win against France, and they were in the quarterfinals, for example. Yeah. And who knows, maybe then they made the semifinals, playing against Italy, for example. They were missing some good shots. Something was just not clicking. They just couldn't connect shots, although they have more than enough good shooters. So they're not far away from being on the top.
I mean, if Larkin is 100%, that changes everything. In this tournament, you had a feeling he was never 100%, and eventually he left. He didn't even play in the round of 16.
It's not like we're blaming Shane, because I think that even in EuroLeague he needs time.
He just had problems. That's it.
He had problems, but even the EuroLeague season he needs time to get on his pace. So maybe that's just part of his personality. He was not used to national team basketball. He had more than enough time to get into his shape during the season for the most important games in April, for example, or May. So yeah, I mean, they're not in a bad situation. They just need to make some adjustments, some luck, and some players in a better shape.
The problem is that they don't have very good Turkish players on the elite Turkish clubs.
They're just not playing at all.
This is why you have like Tuncer for the national team all of a sudden becoming a very important scorer, but for Efes he's just a bench player.
Maybe Sermush Hazer gonna be a reliable ball handler with some defensive.
Well, right now I see him more of a defensive player, but we'll see what happens next season.
Panayotis Kaklamanakis, what do you think? Who deserves to be the MVP, no matter what the final winner will be?
Lorenzo Brown?
I think so. For me, it's even hard to find the MVP on the French team.
I mean, it's Rudy Gobert if you look at the numbers, but then when you're thinking about the impact,
the really, really best player in the court,
you're starting to think about Tom Hurtel.
There's Yabusele also. I mean,
this
is tough one. This is tough one.
But the obvious answer is Lorenzo Brown.
And I checked the history, and I think that there was only once when Dirk won the MVP of EuroBasket in 2005.
Didn't Marciulionis win it in 95?
I mean, Dirk was the last one who didn't win the championship, but he won the MVP. And Marciulionis was the next one in 1995. So it's a rare thing if, for example, we're talking that Schroder or anybody else deserves this MVP title. It's basically goes for a winner.
Yeah.
Progress 19. Which game is the upset of the tournament in your opinion?
I mean, it's obvious.
Slovenia, Poland, the biggest contrast between the level and the expectations as well.
A team with no EuroLeague and NBA players beating a team with one of the best NBA players and an NBA veteran and some solid EuroLeague players. So it's a huge upset.
Diagoras Manusos, what 3 things that you've or we learned from this EuroBasket?
Well,
predictions are useless.
Predictions are useless. That's the main thing. Yeah.
It's so great when national team basketball is more about the offense than defense. We were used to these 70, 60 point games, and so it was a good improvement.
I also learned that in this venue, it's easier to get a technical than get a cup of coffee.
That's true. It's a good one. It's a good one.
So, but I mean, I cannot say that I've learned a lot of new things because We were also in the EuroBasket in Tel Aviv, in Istanbul. We were in the World Cup in China. It's more or less the same. As long as the biggest names, the biggest star players are playing for their national teams, you can expect games to be high scoring, high tempo, and based on skill. So this is what's happening in the EuroBasket.
And probably also the other thing is that we can no longer tolerate this officiating. I mean, stop playing these games. Just bring the best referees. Just find a deal with the EuroLeague referees, because from what I hear, it's just about more of ambitions of FIBA not hiring EuroLeague referees. Because as we said, we have EuroLeague coaches here, EuroLeague players, of course, with NBA players. But the difference between the quality on the court and the people who are trying to control the game is just embarrassing. So, yeah, that would be probably the main 3 points. That's it, Rytis.
Nice.
Thanks a lot for all the questions.
Very productive.
Very
Q&A
productive,
session.
Fast Q&A session, and probably we should go to Five Guys right now.
That sounds great.
I see your smile on your face. I mean, you're happy, and we need to eat. I mean, there were no days off in this tournament. Although it is official a day off, there were no days off. The last pod from Berlin. Let's expect the best from the final game. We will make all these conclusions after the tournament with Augustas. And yeah, thanks a lot.
See you next time.